Hello, everyone, and welcome to our live stream. We are so delighted you're able to join us today. We are doing a live stream about demystifying NW3 with the wonderful Lori Timberlake of Do Over Dog Training. Lori does it all. She is a CPD KA. She's a certified nosework instructor. She's a CO and a judge with NACSW, a judge with AKC, a judge with CWAGS, a trial official with USCSS. She's a cyber network evaluator as well as a review official, and she's also the owner of Do Over Dog Training. She's amazing. So we are delighted to be able to host Lori for this live stream today. And we're going to be talking all about NW3 because, ooh, it could be scary. And we want to make certain that we are helping you guys better understand what NW3 really is all about, demystify some of the stuff, and talk through some of the misconceptions and things that people may have. We definitely want to make certain that you guys are participating, though. We are streaming this on our Facebook page for Network University, as well as our YouTube channel. So you can post comments in there, and we can see them on the screen. We'll put them up occasionally, and then Laura will be able to answer those. We'll be here for about an hour. So if we do have any additional questions that are in the comments, I'll make sure I follow up with Lori. We may actually do a webinar that is specific for this. But to start off with, we have our very first general question. Miss Lori, what are some of the common myths or misconceptions that you've heard in your travels about the NW3 level?
Well, people think it's impossible, and it's not. It's, the hides aren't more difficult. I mean, you could have some elevated, you're going to have inaccessible, you're going to have distractors and containers, but you should have been used to those from NW2, right? So there's nothing there's no big secret, like you have to do this for NW3 or you're never going to pass. It's, it's really about reading your dog and understand, I could go on and on, but I'm sure you have more questions, but I don't want people to think it's as scary as they, I've done 15 NW3s, which is very common, right? But you don't need to, right? It's not, if you, I don't know how to say it. I don't want people to go in scared, like it's an impossible task. I guess that's the biggest misconception, is that it's impossible. I'm going to be there forever. And you don't have to be.
So what are some of the reasons that people may have this misconception about NW3 that, oh, I happily went along, got my ORT, I got my NW1, I got my MW2. Oh my God, it's NW3. Oh, thank God I'm out of NW3 and I can do elite. So what is it about NW3 that you think is adding into that misconception that it's impossible?
I think a lot of it is, like you said, they go ORT, NW1, NW2, and they go through with flying colors and really quickly sometimes, right? Like matter of months, people might go through all those levels. And I don't think their dog has seen all the pictures. I don't think their dog understands all of the things. I think a lot of people can't read their dog or could read their dog better. Where in NW1, NW2, you can basically walk them around the room and as long as they see all the objects, they're going to bump into it and find it. Where you really need to become more of a team at NW3. And I think that's that missing link, right? Is people just go through so fast, and you can get through NW2 with not a whole lot of, I don't want to say skills, but without a whole lot of extra training, right? You can get through pretty quickly, but once you get to NW3, you really need to up your game. And I think that's where something is missing.
Okay. And I think that leads in nicely with this question that we have of, do you think the struggles are more dog issues or handler issues?
I think handler, right?
So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, for dogs, if they know odor and they've passed their NW2, they can find the hides. Like I said, the hides aren't really much more difficult. You might have a little bit more, like I said, a little bit more elevated, or you might have a little deeper inaccessible than maybe you had at NW2. But I think, our dog might show interest in some pooling odor, and we call it right away because we're not really seeing what's happening. Or, you might have a blank search or a one hide search, and you stay in and you go around and around and around, and your dog's like, I don't know what you're trying to say, but I guess I'll just stop here. And then we get the alert. So I think it's definitely a lot more handler. Handlers need to really, I think the biggest thing at NW3 is learning to read your dog and how they look in different instances. How do they look on an elevated hide as opposed to how do they look if they're popping up in a blank space trying to get to that next plane, right? They should look very differently. But if you don't know what you're looking for, as soon as your dog goes up, you're going to call it as an elevated hide. So I think a lot of video and a lot of just observing other teams and observing your own self and your searches and just watching your dog. The dogs know what they're doing, I think, at NW3. Unless you haven't really gotten them out, maybe you were lucky and you had all of your, exteriors were on cement or pavement and now you're in grass. Maybe you just didn't have that before. So there could be a few dog things that we need to work out. But if you've passed NW2, your dog should have been exposed to distractors and all the things that you would see at NW3. So I think it's really us.
Okay. And then how is it that you can become more of a team that's necessary when you are actually in the NW3 level?
Yeah. And we've talked about this before in other webinars and in different podcasts and things, but I think a lot of what you do outside of scent work too can help with you being a team and engagement. And from the time you get out of your car to the time you get to the start line, I think should be play and engaging and the dog focused on you. I see a lot of people that just do nose work and they just let their dog off leash and the dog has zero connection to the handler, right? So engagement is a big thing, I think. And a lot of that can be done outside of nose work. But as far as being a team, if you're doing, I see this a lot too, an off-leash search, are you just standing in the doorway, letting your dog do it all? Which sometimes I'll do that. That's an independent hunting skill, something to do. But go with your dog. Be part of the team. Be ready to reward them when they're close to a hide. Let them know, like, yes, I see you working on something and do what you can. Maybe you need to get out of their way. Maybe you need to move a little bit. But all that comes with experience. And again, watching those videos. So that you know how to handle it if your dog is working pulling odor, right? By seeing that a lot, by practicing a lot, by watching your videos, by watching other people, you can say, I've seen this before. I'm going to move a little bit to the left here and my dog's going to blah, 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 right? So I think just being with your dog more, maybe doing more on-leash searches so that you are connected to your dog. I like practicing both. But if your dog's always running off leash, I think, again, we lose a little bit of that connection. The dog's doing all the work, but that doesn't always help us at NW3 when we have unknown and we have to cover everything. So being with your dog, being on leash, understanding what they're telling you, doing known hides. If we're always doing unknown and guessing, that could be an issue. If you're doing known hides, you can tell your dog right away, yes, you're right. But yeah, I really think doing stuff outside of scent work will build your bond and really help you become a team and build that engagement, which I think is a missing piece for a lot of teams.
Would it also be helpful in doing things outside of scent work that you can hone your eye in those other contexts too, where sometimes people just get so focused on the hide that they're not really watching the dog throughout the rest of the search, so then they can't see all those precursor things. So potentially doing something like what you're talking about, like parkour, or even just doing tricks or just hanging out with our dogs and watching them, maybe even videoing that and watching it back. Could that also help?
Oh yeah. I mean, video your dog on a hike. What do they look like when all of a sudden they make a quick turn because a chipmunk went by? Or what do they look like when they're sniffing pee? And how, watch your video. How does that look different than when they're on odor? So observing our dogs in all types of things. And again, outside of scent, parkour is great because when you start honing that parkour eye, you start seeing things that you didn't see before. So, I'm a fan of parkour. But there's a lot of sports, like you said, even tricks, it just helps build that bond. Tricks could be pretty difficult to teach, some of the more, intricate ones. So you're spending a lot of time, a lot of bonding, and you're really, working with your dog. So yeah, all of those things really, really help.
And then just to tie this up a little bit, is that sometimes people hear us talk about, we really want an independent dog when we're talking about nose work. And obviously I want a lot of independence the higher up that levels I go. But now they're saying, well, wait a minute, you're talking about this team thing.
Yeah.
Where actually I'm supposed to be involved too. So can you talk about that a little bit? How people can have to find a balance between we want the dog making decisions, but you are actually part of the whole picture.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is go with your dog, right? So it doesn't mean 2 feet away from them. You can run them off leash, let them lead, let them show you the odor picture, what is happening. but be with them. Don't be standing in the doorway, right? Don't stand in the middle of the room and say, oh, you got something over there? Oh, no, you don't? Because the dog will be like working something, and then they see you on the other side of the room and they're like, oh, I must be wrong because she's not even near me, or my treat's really far away. So I'm just going to leave. I'm going to come back to you, right? So I think while we can still work off leash and we still want to build that independence, we want the dog leading the search, go with your dog, follow them, whatever distance that may be. It might be 6 foot, it might be 8 foot, it might be 10 or 15 feet, depending on your dog. But don't stand like a lump in the middle of your search area. I hope that helps explain that a little bit.
Yes, that's perfect. So then some of the things we want to talk about is because you have all these different hats that you wear. You are a competitor yourself, you're an instructor working with teams, but you're also a trial official. So you get to see this from all the different angles. What are some of the common things that you're noticing that are struggles, either from the dog or the handler, on top of what you've already talked about?
So I think the two biggest things I see, other than the misfire of the handler not reading the dog correctly, like that's a whole other issue, right? I see a lot of that where the dog's like on it and we're all like, the dog's on it and they're not calling it for whatever reason. But other than that, containers are a big issue. I don't know if we're not practicing them or not practicing them right, or what the problem is with containers. And pooling odor. So the dogs they're in odor, but I think even in a training situation, the handler might see it. But I think when we add the trial stress, they're just like, I don't know, they're working and working. It's got to be here somewhere. So they get closer and closer, which I just talked about. Stay close to your dog, but I don't mean like stand on top of them, let them work it out. But being able to recognize like, oh, my dog is working something, we're in something, but they didn't find it. And like 10 seconds have gone by, 15 seconds have gone by. What can I do? What do we do here? Right. So sometimes people will call it even though the dog hasn't indicated. So I guess knowing the difference between an inaccessible and pooling and trapping odor, right? Because the dog's working and working, but maybe not telling you. So you need to know how that looks different from if it's inaccessible or if it's some kind of pooling, trapping odor that they're working, but they're not, they need to get back to the hide. So those are the two things I see is containers and false alerts with pooling odor.
So what are some of the suggestions that you have for people regarding containers?
Go watch Michele Ellertson's dog-driven container webinar. I say this in everything we do. I have been doing it nonstop since I watched her webinar. I think just repetition and teaching our dogs to check every box without saying, check here, check here, check here. Having the dog learn to check all the boxes, because then you can feel confident and not go back and forth 3, 4, 5 times. And now the dog's saying, well, we're still in here. So now this distractor smells good, or this box on the end must be interesting, right? And then we get the false alerts. But if you can confidently do your containers in maybe 1 or 2 passes, right? Maybe you go down once and you come back again. Any more than that is when I see lots and lots of false alerts. So go watch her webinar. Please put a link for her webinar in this.
Yes, absolutely. That link is inside the chat.
Yes, I think and a lot of it is repetition, right? You can't just do it once or twice. Like I've done it like in a workshop is like part of a workshop. And I'm like, and that's 30 minutes, right? I could do a whole class of that dog-driven containers. I could do sessions of classes of dog-driven containers. I do it with my dog at least once a day. We work on the dog-driven containers because I want her to know right from the beginning, before she even does her ORT, that this is how we do containers. So I think it's very helpful, but you can't just do it once and say, we tried it, it didn't work. Like you need to really do it and do the repetitions, put the work in.
Are there any handler tips that you have for containers as far as how people could potentially, if you're going down a row of containers, what you should do as a handler?
Yeah, I really like if it's a row. Again, you want to be a little behind your dog and a little off to the side, but doing the outside and not the inside if you can, right? Depending on how they're set up and which path your dog decides to take. But yeah, you want to be behind and a little bit off, off their shoulder, not directly behind them, not too much on top of them. And I do lately like a little bit shorter leash. I don't think we need to. I know back in the day, we just have a 12 or 15-foot leash. You could stand at the start line and your dog would go out there, find them or not find them, and call finish and be done. But I think, again, going with our dog, a little bit shorter leash, making sure they're checking them all, and then not staying in too long. What else handler wise?
A lot
Yeah.
of people get tripped up at the end of the rows, so they're not sure what to do.
Yes. So I always say, pretend if there's space that there's one more invisible container, so you're not slowing down or stopping at the end of the row. I will see false alerts in every level from ORT to Summit on that last box. Even our very best teams do it when you add that trial stress. So if you can do it in practice and train yourself, because it's not just repetitions for the dog, but repetitions for you, that you're not stopping at the end of that row. If there's not space to go out further, then make sure you're turning right when you get to the end, right? Don't slow down, make your turn and go back the other way so that you're just that stop will kill you every time. So don't slow down or stop at the beginning or the end of any row or U or stagger pattern or whatever it might be that has ends on it. Try to go as smoothly as you can.
Okay, perfect. And then talking about pooling, is there any advice that you have for people? Because pooling definitely is something that people get very afraid of. They're like,
Yeah.
oh God, it's pooling. That's it. We're doomed. So do you have any tips as far as that's concerned?
Yeah, I mean, you could try to set them up at home. It seems like whenever I try to set them up, they don't work. When I don't want it, it works. No, you can make it work with a fan, using, like, I've got a really sunny window behind me, placing something in the sun, letting it sit for a while. But fans are super helpful. Turning them off, turning them on, turning them off, changing the directions that they are, 2 fans, whatever you need to do, but then video it. I think our dogs can figure out pooling odor if we're not calling it too quick or trying to direct them, let them figure it out and then video it. And I think just watching those videos, what does it look like? How does my dog do this? I think that's the big missing piece, is just not knowing what pooling looks like. I think our dogs can figure it out if they've seen it before, right? If you've never had, I'm sure everyone has run into pooling odor at some point, but if you don't specifically try to set it, and they don't see it as often, it might be a little bit more difficult for them. But I think that's more something on our end, is understanding what we're seeing and not doing those blurt alerts and letting our dogs work through it. Yeah, but fans are like the easiest way to go, I think.
Perfect. And then Michelle actually just did another webinar for us that I highly recommend for everyone. It's called Is That Pooling or Something Else? And she actually offers a ton of video review in there where she's comparing pooling with inaccessibles, really good stuff. So that way you guys can hone your eye as far as that's concerned. So that link is in the chat as well. So in thinking about, you see, a lot of these skills are with the handler, but they're also things that we're trying to set up with the dog. You often hear with NW3 that mental management is the issue as far as the handler is concerned. So can you talk about that a little bit, about what people mean when they say that?
Yeah. And I think that for all levels, right? But especially NW3, everyone says it's a mind game. It's really, if you go in confidently, it's not a mind game. But not too many people go in confidently. But yeah, either checking out Tia, and who was she with? That
Silka Wittig.
Yes. I know you just did some things with them. I'm sure you can find stuff online too that they do. But a big thing that helped me, and I didn't start doing it until I got to Elite, but really keeping that journal, and after your search, writing down and just trying to remember what you did, because I got through NW3 and I got through really fast. But I remember the last trial, I was so nervous that when they did awards, I didn't even know. Even when they put the little sheet up, I'm like, I still don't know if I got them or not, because I don't remember, because I don't know why I was so nervous at that. But I started, like, after the search, okay, this is what we did, and these were the hides we found, and this is the order we found them. And I would draw a little map. And now that we have the virtual walkthroughs, it's really easy to, like, look at the little video, make yourself, I mean, you don't have to be an artist, but a little map of kind of maybe the major things in the room. And I would draw a line, like, we went this way, and then we did this, and then she booked back over here, and then we went here. And I would try to, and then I would get my videos, if the place offered videos, and watch, like, is that what really happened? Because I think the more thoughtful you are of really being in the search and not thinking about, but I got to check over here, but we haven't been over there, but blah, 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 we're not going to get, get all that stuff out of your head and just be in it with your dog. Just be part of the search and not, I'll see this a lot in NW3. I know I'm kind of veering off, but where they're looking at other areas, like we didn't get over there, as their dog's alerting behind them, right? So really just being in the moment and just journaling really helped a lot. And I'm sure they might talk about that in the mental management stuff too, but remembering what you did. If you can start really thinking about your searches and remembering where you've been, and I've seen this picture before, and I remember when I looked at the video that this was over in this corner, and we did go over and check it, and just being more mindful, I think really helps calm you down a lot. But definitely all the mental management, there's so much out there. I'm sure there's lots of tips and tricks they have too. But that's what really helped me, was journaling and then doing it right after the search.
Perfect. I think it's a really good piece of advice. It also lets you kind of digest what happened. It keeps you in a less emotional state, because you're just trying to remember what happened, as opposed to, oh, that was cataclysmic. Like, no, this is the way that we went and this is what happened. And it's just a way of kind of keeping you calmer, which I think is a really good piece of advice.
Yeah.
But the one thing that you mentioned was that people are scanning when the dog is still working, but trying to keep track of where you are in the space is definitely something that people need to do. So would you recommend when there's a good time for them to do that? Potentially like when the dog has already found a hide and they're rewarding the dog?
Yeah. And I really like, and I don't know who started this, but I see a lot of Michele's students do it, and I'm having my students do it. But when you're feeding, like, pause, just hold on to your dog. You don't need to feed them and then they take off, because one, they're still chewing. They're not thinking yet. They're not in search mode. So while you're rewarding, stop, hold them by their collar or harness, take a breath, look around. We didn't get over there. And then again, we can help our dogs a little bit, maybe point them in that direction. Like, we just didn't get over there yet. Let's do that. So yeah, that's a good time, because really I see it so much during the search where the dog is literally indicating on something and the handler's like looking off in the distance, like, we didn't get over there yet. It's very sad.
Perfect. So those are really good pieces of advice for everyone. Again, these are things that you're noticing with all your different hats that you wear, the things people could actually work on. And one of the things you mentioned before was blank searches. And so the question that we have is, how do you balance practicing blank areas with productive? Blank once a week. They don't want to do blank too much and potentially demotivate the dog. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So one thing I've always said is, I don't think blank searches, if done properly, demotivate our dogs, right? I think depending on how we do them, you got to be careful. If your dog's just doing blank searches every day and not doing any searches with odor, that's going to be demotivating. But my favorite exercise, and I do it even with, so I have a new foster who's probably going to be adopted very shortly, like after this live stream. But I do blank searches with her. I'll let her out. She'll do a room. She goes out, and then I put a hide in, because I want her to be exposed to it right away. And what does it look like when there's odor? And we're doing it this early. So that's something you can definitely do at home. I'm sure you have multiple bedrooms or rooms in your house. Have your dog do a quick blank search, whether it's a minute, maybe even 30 seconds, and then do the exact same area with odor. So then your dog's getting used to blank. Sometimes there is an odor here. You can see what that looks like. And now you can see the difference. Now, how does my dog look when there's odor? And I think it's a really good handler boost when they're like, oh my God, look how quickly my dog found it, which proves if odor was there, they would tell you it's there, right? So you don't have to keep going around and around and around and around, because if there was odor there, your dog's going to tell you that it's there. So that's one way I like to do it. Obviously, if you're getting into NW3 and above, when the searches could be a little bit longer, start adding a little time, do a little bit bigger space, maybe go to a park and do a shelter, and you do a 2-minute blank search, put your dog up and then put a hide. How does it look with the hide there? So I think you can do a good amount of blanks, as long as you're following it up with odor. And then another one of my favorites is taking just a really big search area, and the hide's all the way at the end, right? So maybe you start at the front door of your house and the hide is all the way upstairs in a back bedroom. So your dog has to work all that blank until they get up to that hide. So that's another one I like to do too, a big, empty space, and then they finally get to a hide. But I don't think it's demotivating, because dogs learn, like, if I didn't find it, I'm going to work really hard next time because I didn't find it last time. So I think it actually speeds them up a little bit. And make sure you're doing it in all elements, right? Make sure you're doing it in your containers, and don't stop at that last box. Make sure you're doing it in vehicles. I even like doing blank searches for my NW1 and NW2 dogs, because 2 of the 3 vehicles are going to be blank. And I'll see handlers at a trial, oh, you're not working. Oh, you're eating the grass. Oh, your nose is on the ground. It's because they haven't gotten to the vehicle that has the odor on it, and the dogs are bored. So while they think their dog isn't working, the dog's like, there's nothing here. Right. So I think it's important to do blanks early on. But if you haven't, and you're just doing them now at NW3, don't be afraid of them. Just make sure you are still balancing them with searches with odor.
Perfect. So as far as trying to combine some of these things, because I think that's where people's heads explode. They're like, okay, I need to have an independent dog, but I also need them to be a teammate. I need to work these larger areas that may have very large blank spots, or the whole thing may be blank, but my dog may also have to find a bunch of hides, or they may be difficult to get to, and they may not have odor availability right away, so they may have to get it from a different angle. Oh my God, Lori. So can you help people understand some of those things where there is a combination of all of that, where, as an example, your dog may enter into a space going clockwise and they may not have availability to odor? That doesn't mean the area is blank. They just may literally have to turn around in order to get the odor going the other way. So can you help people better understand the difference between an area is actually blank and no, your dog just didn't have odor availability yet?
Yeah, I mean, and this is where, and I like using hide placement for patterning. So I don't mean like walking our dogs around the search in a pattern, but like maybe doing a bunch of hides on the perimeter, but teaching our dogs, again, they can be independent, and your dog will say, I know how to search a room. I'm going to go all the way around this way. And maybe they don't find anything. And that's when you as a handler can say, well, let's just go back the other way, just in case, but if we teach our dogs to work in a certain way, they're leading the majority of it. And then once they've covered everything and we say, gosh, but there's still 2 minutes left and we didn't find anything, and I thought I saw a little change over there, but it wasn't enough to call it. That's when we step in and say, you know what, let's go the other way. Or let's go over to that area where I thought maybe I saw something, maybe your dog just had a little stutter step, or maybe they just sniffed a little harder, but then, moved on for whatever reason. Or maybe your dog came in the search gangbusters. I see this a lot, right? They're like, I'm here. And they do a whole lap and they're not really searching, right? They might have covered the space, but they weren't searching yet. That's when you come in and say, all right, we've done our loop. Now let's go around the other way. So we do need to, but again, we're not then taking them by a 2-foot leash and dragging them around the other way. We're going to suggest, hey, let's go this way. Maybe we do put them back on leash, but we're still having them lead. And you might start doing the direction, the pattern in the opposite direction. And they might just cut across and say, oh, wait, it was right here. Now I got it. I caught it over here. And that's when we have to go with our dog and trust the dog. So it really does need to be a little give and take. We want the dogs to lead the most of it. But I think sometimes we need to just say, hang on. I know I saw something over there, but you didn't really tell me. So let's just suggest this area again and see what happens. So yeah, does that explain that a little bit?
Yes, that's perfect. And can you also just talk about, for people who are going from NW2 to NW3, because again, going back to what we were talking about before, like, oh, so scary, of the differences as far as the size or the composition of the search areas?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like AKC where advanced, you have so many square feet, and excellent and so many square feet. It really depends on what the site has available. And, I've seen NW2 searches that were way bigger than some NW3 searches. So it's not always about the size. It depends on what's available. So don't, you should be practicing large areas, but don't assume because it's NW3, everything's going to be twice as big as it was in NW2. You may have very similar search areas, very similar hide placements. Some of the differences is that you could have up to 6 foot. You could have an elevated hide. You can have inaccessible in both, but maybe it's a little bit more inaccessible in NW3. Maybe not, right? The goal for NW3 is, can you read your dog and can you confidently call finish, right? With an unknown number of hides. You could still have your distractors and containers, but it's not guaranteed like it is at NW2. And you could have more vehicles. You could have up to 5 vehicles. I'd like to know what host can get 5 vehicles, but you can have up to 5 vehicles in NW3. So if you've never practiced more than 3 vehicles, just for the heck of it, maybe get out there and do it because it is possible. But other than that, there's really, it's the unknown. It's the unknown number of hides is your big difference from NW2 to NW3.
So can you talk about how you suggest for people when they're practicing, how they can wrap their heads around that unknown part of, does that mean that I now always have to practice with somebody else so that they can set my search for me? How is it that you would suggest that people deal or better prepare for that part of it?
Yeah. I mean, I think at some point you have to do some blind searches where someone else is setting your hides, whether you're going to class or whether you have a friend that's setting hides for you. If it's a family member, make sure you tell them not to set anything crazy insane because it's always the family members. They're like, oh, I'm going to put it on top of the ceiling fan. But I think even if you're doing known, maybe that you put one hide out, but you keep your dog in for 2 minutes, or you keep them in until you know the whole area is, clear. I do that with my NW2 students now. I might only have one hide in the search, and I'll tell them after you find it, that's all there is, but I want you to cover any areas you didn't cover before you leave the search area. Maybe not all the time. I'd like the dogs to go in, find one hide, yay, have a party and go. Like that's necessary. Our dogs need that. But we also need to start showing them where we're not always going to end on a hide. Even if there's only one, the dog doesn't know there's only one. So make sure you're covering the whole area. But I think it is important at NW3 to do some blind. They don't all have to be blind, but some blind searches with somebody else setting them so that you can, and you also need that feeling, that unknown feeling of, I don't know how many there are. You need to have that feeling before you go into a trial, right?
Perfect. All right. And then moving on to this section for yourself, either as a competitor or as an instructor or as a trial official, what are some of the things that you enjoy the most about NW3?
Yeah, not everybody, but most people don't like NW3. I really truly believe it's the level where you and your dog become a team. Like I said, you can get through ORT, NW1, NW2, the dog could lead the whole show or you could lead the whole show and still pass with flying colors. But at NW3, you both need to be a part of it. And that's when I think you really learn to read your dog. So I love watching teams do well. As an official, it's sad when they're not doing well, but I just love seeing that teamwork when they call it confidently. They're not waiting for the 30-second warning. They're like, we covered the area, finish. And it just, it makes you feel so good. It just makes it makes as a trial official, like, wow, they really put the work in. They really understand their dog. Same thing as an instructor, and when they're confidently calling it in class and I'm like, yes, they got it. They're going to do awesome this weekend. And then as a competitor, it was a while ago. And I remember thinking when NW3 was done, like, oh, and I'm not saying this like to be braggy or anything, but we did it really quickly. So I was like, oh, that's it. I feel like we're not ready for elite. Like, I feel like, and I kept thinking, like, were we just lucky? Like, did we just have easy trials? Like, how did we get through that so quick? I have to go back and say it was a lot of skill on my dog's part, some skill on my part, but I wanted to be in it longer. And it just was over so quickly. So, enjoy. People are going to cringe when I say this, but enjoy your NW3 journey. This is, there's a lot more ribbons. You can get your element titles. There's like the awards are really fun. Like, enjoy it, embrace it. Don't be afraid of it.
So, can you talk a little bit about, because I think what you're bringing up is perfect as far as this idea of the progression through the levels. So, can you talk about how we can actually leverage NW3 in order to get more prepared for elite? That it shouldn't just be, I can't wait to get out of this, so now I can do elite.
Right. And I think another a misconception with elite is, oh, we're just collecting points. It doesn't matter. Well, all the stress is gone. And then people don't train as hard and like stop coming to class because, well, we're at elite. We just need to collect points. But honing that skill of reading your dog. Now at elite, you've got these big searches that take hours, right? The morning searches could take hours to get through. So talk about pooling odor. You're going to have pooling odor in elite. So and learning that and learning to read your dog at NW3 so that when you go to elite, instead of just collecting points, you can like do well, right? Get through elite proudly with a lot of points and not just, we got our 43, we're good. Which some people, if that's all they care about, that's fine. They're probably not the ones that are on this live stream, right? But no, I mean, there's some people that just want to go to trial to have fun, and there's people that are fairly competitive and want to do well. So I think taking NW3 seriously and really putting the work in, your team is going to grow. So then when you get to elite, yes, your hides are going to be more elevated. You could say, you know what? But we did those 6-foot hides at NW3. We practiced them. We trained for them. Maybe we never got one in a trial. Maybe we did, but now we're ready for them at elite. So I want your NW3 journey should really prepare you for elite. Instead of going backwards. I see a lot of people go backwards at elite, and that's not good. So yeah, I think all the things you learn at 3 are going to help you moving forward. And the elite selects, they're so fun. And you can do those once you have one NW3 title. Or a level 3 element title. So use those elite selects too on your way to elite. I think they can help you with your NW3, and they're going to help you with their elite trials. And they're nice because they're a half day. There's not that huge commitment of being there all day for the 6 searches. They're short. And I think they're really helpful in getting you through NW3 and elite.
Awesome. And can you also talk about some of the ways that people could be a little bit more strategic when they're trialing in NW3 or elsewhere? Like, as an example, maybe entering FEO or maybe asking for help. Can you talk about those?
Yeah, it seems just from the little buzz I'm hearing lately, it seems like there are more NW3s that actually have FEO openings. So yeah, if you can do an NW3 FEO, do it. If not, do an NW2. The hides are going to be very similar. If you can find an NW2 and do that FEO, even if you're at the NW3 or higher, I think that's an amazing thing you can do. And then, like you said, the ask for help. If you're having, and not even if you're having a bad day, maybe something, whatever you want to. The site isn't, maybe it's a camp that's really distracting and you have a dog that just loves to critter. So take that day and say, I want to know where the hides are. I want to make sure I'm not calling any critter. I want to make sure I get my dog away from any crittery area. And I want to focus on being super excited and paying my dog like crazy when they find odor, right? So maybe you do use your entire day as an ask for help if you're in a situation that isn't just great for your dog, right? Or maybe you're just having a bad day. I had a student, or wasn't a student, but someone that enters a lot of my trials. She got in an accident on the way to the trial and had to have her car towed. She still got there, but she wasn't, like her mind just wasn't there. So she did ask for help. And, if something traumatic like that happens, you're probably not going to do well, but you're already, you paid. Yeah, it was a local trial, like go and then turn it around to your advantage so that you can use it as a nice training situation for sure.
I think that's an excellent piece of advice. And I hope that people can appreciate that every experience that you have affects you too, not just your dog. So if you do use Ask for Help, or if you happen to enter in as FEO for exhibition only, and you have a successful outing, that is building up your confidence as a competitor, as a handler, and as a trainer. And that then bleeds over into other interactions that you're having with your dog with other trials. But if you go into something you don't use those things, you don't have a good experience, it chips away at your confidence. The confidence is all you got. So the more that you can protect that, the better. So really leveraging these things in a more strategic way can absolutely help. So I think that's a fantastic thing to point out. We do have some questions.
Sure.
So the first one is, are there any strategies related to the run order if you happen to find yourself running first versus running last?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, so if you're running last, it's going to be more dog smells. There's going to be more pooling odor possibly. But on the flip side, 38 dogs ran before you. And if they all found the hide, your dog's going to have a pretty good path to that hide. So it's not always a bad thing to run last. But it's the mental, think of your mental status, right? Like, oh my God, I've been waiting for hours. And when am I going to get to go? So do something to keep yourself upbeat. I've had students, watch old videos where they did well in the car. They'll read old score sheets where judges made nice comments. Get yourself some sugar or whatever, some fruit, some vegetables, some protein to make sure that you're up for it. Because I think running last is, again, more of a mind game than anything. And if a lot of dogs have falsed in a certain area, there is going to be more doggy smell in that area. So, but if you've trained for that, then you don't have to worry about it. If you train with, lots of dog smells and stuff like that, you don't have to worry about it. So practice that. If you train with people, like either in class or with friends, practice change up the run order. Make sure you're going last sometimes. Although 6 dogs is not the same as 38 dogs, but it's a good thing to practice. And then as far as first, again, I think it's the nerves sometimes. Like, oh my God, it's first. I remember I did one. It was an elite, and it was drive to, and the search was on a plane, and it was so exciting. And I was the first one to go, except I got lost because I had no one to follow. Like, I don't know. I didn't know what to do. And I had to turn around. So that it made me all nervous. I'm going to be late and someone else. So sometimes first it's just a little nerve wracking. But you're going into a clean space and all that good stuff. So you don't have to worry about falsing after a dog that falsed in front of you. But I think for both of them, it's more of a mental thing. So do what you need to do to get your mental game in check.
Perfect. I think there were some really good things that you point down there as well, as far as things that people can do when they're practicing. If you're practicing with friends or if you're practicing in class, definitely making certain that you're purposefully changing up your run orders. Sometimes you run first, sometimes you run last, because your dogs will absolutely pick up on those patterns. Your dog can figure out, if I always run last, I just got to follow the other dogs to get to my cookie. That's not helpful. At the same point, the dog has never had to encounter all that other dog stuff to get to their cookie opportunity. That's not great either. And be really creative as far as how you guys can really leverage dog odor. It's one of the things that I suggest, and by all means, this is your live stream, so feel free to be like, I wouldn't suggest that. Is I will have my clients work with either their friends or family members who have a dog, get the dog really happy and excited playing with a toy, either take that actual toy or take a rag of some sort, get all the slobber off of it, and then use that. You can then wet it in order to make it nice and active again, and then wipe that on containers or other removable objects and put those inside of your search area that's near your hide or away from your hide. Both is a good thing to practice so that your dog really is encountering, ooh, this dog was having a real great time playing with a toy. Maybe they're doing the tug or whatever else. They were saying all kinds of stuff when they were doing that, and that's near or within their search area. The more you can mimic that stuff, the better. I think just some of the stuff just requires some creativity from us, so we're not quite so scared about it. Am I totally off the rails for that?
I literally did that last week. I pulled all of Elsa's, she loves the smallest toys. So they're all wet because they're totally in her mouth and just slobbery. And I put them in plastic containers. So they weren't loose in the search area. I put them in plastic containers with holes and I just put them everywhere. And I actually have a toy from our Mastiff from years ago that was just so slobbered that it still stinks to this day. And I put that all in the search area last week. I try to do it here and there, but yeah, that is an excellent idea. I love that idea. And I use that. So yeah, get a friend's toys. And again, if they're playing with them too, you got all that happy pheromone juice all over it. That's great.
Perfect. And then we have another question. What do you think the average number of threes does it take to get your NW3 elite?
Let's
put Lori on the spot.
I would, I would love to do some actual research with numbers. But I would say with most of my students, sorry, my husband's texting me. I mean, I've had some go straight through, but most leg, 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 leg. So like 6 to 8,
Mhm.
is probably common. And there's people that have certainly done a lot more and people that have just go straight through and they're amazing. But yeah, everything in between. But I would say 6 to 8 is probably an average.
And can you just talk about how people should prepare themselves for that that's not the end of the world?
Yeah, I mean, and I know some people, self included, are just very competitive, right? And anything that's not perfect is a failure. And don't think that way. You can't think that way. You have to take each trial as, what did I learn in this trial? What can I take away? What can I work on from this trial that will help me with the next one? NW3 is a journey, right? It's an unknown. It's a big difference from NW2. So you can't just go in thinking I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. It's going to take you a little bit, and you'll see people once they get to those last couple legs, then all of a sudden they're placing and doing really well because they've learned from all the legs they've gotten before. Like, I had an issue with containers. We worked on them and now we're getting first place in containers, right? So you have to take, instead of just saying, that trial stunk. Well, I'm in another one this weekend and I'm in another one the weekend after that. If you're just rushing through and entering every NW3 there is, and you're not really sitting back and learning from errors, then you're not going to be able to go forward. So yeah, really just think of it as a journey and that you're going to learn something at each one.
So how do you recommend that people do that learning? Because it can be very difficult for people, particularly the day of, like, oh, life is over.
I know.
So when is it that they should be like, I love your journaling idea as far as
Yeah.
that's a way of really keeping them in the right headspace. When should they be reviewing their videos? Should it be the next day, the day after that? And should they be seeking out, if they're not working with an instructor, seeking out someone like yourself or some other instructor that does offer that service? What's your general recommendation for people as far as how they can approach this to ensure that it's not just an emotional, overtaking of their mind?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want anyone to be that down at NW3. They're just like, I hate my life, right? It shouldn't be that way. And I know we talk about this a lot and people say, video, I don't have time to video. Like, just use your phone, put your phone on one of those little, like, whatever you need to do. But I just had a student, she was an NW3 2 weeks ago, but she did detective this weekend. And she was like, oh my God, I watched my video. You won't believe what I saw. And then she was looking for it all day in class this morning. And it was so important to her that she figured this thing out that is great. And maybe had she sent me videos a long time ago, I would have seen them before. I don't know. But I think having someone else, like, you should watch your videos. I wouldn't do it right after the search, unless there was some issue that you're just like, oh, I got to see what I can't move on until I see what happened there or whatever. But like, wait a day. I like to watch them and then look at the debrief video. And like, I think it sometimes helps people feel a little bit better when the CO is like, and we had pulling over over here, and a lot of dogs were working this, and they just had to work. If you know it was common that a lot of people did it, then it makes you feel better, but also gives you something to work on. Oh, that's why we missed that hide or whatever. Or, the AC all of a sudden kicked on halfway through, and that's why the dogs in the beginning got it and the ones at the end didn't, or opposite. So listening to those debriefs, I think, can make you feel a little bit better. But reviewing your video and having someone else with a good eye look at it, because they'll see things that you just might not see. Sometimes we can't see things like what the weather was doing or what the airflow was doing. Sometimes I'll look at trees to be like, do I see leaves moving or whatever? So there's some things that, we were not always going to see from a video, but there's so much that you can that makes it so worth it. So have somebody look at your video. But yeah, I wouldn't go to your car and just like watch your video, especially if you didn't do well or you're at NW3, you don't know unless you got to know, right? Then you might want to just, if it's going to make you feel better, to look at it so you're not thinking about it all day. But otherwise, I would just not look at them for like a day or two. and then go through and get them. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, I think having a little bit of that space is really helpful. And one of the things that Holly Bouchard had mentioned recently in her presentations is she'll watch the video multiple times so that she'll be focusing on the dog, then she'll be focusing on the space, and she's focusing on herself, that she's looking at the team, and so on and so forth. So breaking it up like that can also help, and giving herself a little bit of a breath or a distance from the event itself again can just make it so it's not quite so emotional, and that you can have a more objective view of what may have happened and what it is that you can do. Because the big thing with all this is all about learning. We can always do better. Our dogs typically are absolutely incredible, and we are the ones that are trying to improve. So we just need to figure out what it is that we need to do. So we do have a rather long question, and I'm hoping you can help me with it.
Right.
So I've seen people at the lineup spray a water mist up their dog's nostrils and or make their dog stay on the chair. I guess this is trying to clear smells already up the dog's nose and to keep them from sniffing around prior to the search. Is this really helping the dog? I don't do either of these things, and my dog is highly motivated to search. So Holly, I'm not entirely sure what you mean, but I do know that I've seen myself, and maybe you can confirm, Lori, people misting their dog's face as soon as they're missing the nose is in order to keep the nose wet, because the dog, particularly when it's really warm, is that they're trying to make sure the dog is hydrated. But feel free to tackle this however you wish.
Yeah, no, I was going to say the same thing. People, at least not that I know of, they're doing it more to wet their nose and not like clear out the nose like a nasal spray. But, you know, I always think I'm a very, in life and in nose work and in everything I do, I'm very low key. Like, I'm not the one coming up to the line with 6 different leashes and all. Like, I come as is, and then we just go. So I would just make sure when I get my dog out of the car that she would drink a little bit. And I had issues with that because she was so excited to search that she never wanted to drink. So I would just put the smallest amount of water, and then I would drop a treat in. Yep. And then she would go to get her treat. Her nose would get a little wet. And then that became part of our nose work routine. She'd get out of the car and instantly look down, like, where's my bowl? I like routines a lot too for nose work. Like, this is what we're here to do, and this is how we do it, and blah, blah, blah. So definitely getting the nose wet and, you know, letting them drink a little bit of water is very helpful. You don't have to, you can spray them if you want. Some dogs like the spray. Some dogs that get sprayed for a correction are like, oh, don't. I can see those dogs that are like cowering. And then I wonder if that affects their search at all. I haven't never really paid attention to that. But yeah, if you're using water as a correction, I wouldn't use it to spray them before a search either.
That's a really, really good point. Very, very good point. But yes, I will also piggyback on something for you all to keep in mind is how much water your dog is drinking when they are traveling. I've had my boy Valor, he absolutely flat out refused. He would not drink outside of the house. It was not a thing. So the same exact thing that what you were talking about, I would have my bowl, I put frozen meatballs in it, then I put water in, and then voila, we would drink water.
Yeah.
But it's really important for your dogs to be hydrated. This is around the year, not just in the warmer months. They need to be hydrated so they can actually, first of all, be healthy, but also so they have any hope of actually scenting well. So that's an important part to put into your routine. So I love the fact that you brought that up. So as we're starting to wrap up, are there any final things that you wanted to end this little live stream with, as far as maybe appeasing or settling some of the nerves that people may have about NW3? Because I'll just tell you some of the things that I've heard throughout my career is people like, oh, you know, that NACSW, you know, I just wish that whole NW3 is just so awful. I wish I just didn't have to deal with it because I'm doing fine through my NW2 and then it's just a slog, but we finally get out of it and then we get into elite. And I just think that's such a huge missed opportunity. So I'm hoping that we can help people feel a little bit more excited about NW3 and view it for the valuable thing that it is. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah. And I have one other thing I want to talk about before we wrap up too, but make sure you're ready before you go into, because I think that's how it's a slog sometimes, is that people go in not ready and it takes them 6, 8, 12 trials before the dog's like, oh, I got this now. So if you just did your ORT and NW1 and NW2, there's no need to rush right into NW3. Take the time, make sure your dog's seen all the pictures, make sure you've seen all the pictures, make sure that you've practiced unknown number of hides so that you know what it feels like. Make sure you've done a blank search so that you know what it feels like before you just jump into NW3. Because if you go from 2 and you pass your 2 this weekend and then you're entering a 3 and 2 weeks after that, unless you've really been doing the work all along, it's not going to go well. So be ready. I think if you're ready, you're going to do great. I mean, I see lots of teams do really, really well. It doesn't have to be, a thing that you're just stuck in forever. But I think the people that are stuck, and I don't want to say that because things happen too, right? Sometimes you just have that bad luck where that one thing happened at your trial when your dog was searching, and then like, that was my error for the day. We only got a leg. Where there is stuff like that for sure too. But just be ready, put the training in, and don't enter NW3s every weekend. I think that's when I see morale go way down, is when people just keep entering and they're not passing, and then they enter another one and they're not passing, and they're not taking the time to sit back and train and figure out, what do I need to do to make this happen? Right. And I know, like, in certain areas, there's only certain times of year where there's a lot of trials and people try to get in as much as they can. But so you do it next spring, or you do it next fall, or whatever the case may be for your area. You don't feel like you have to rush, because if you rush, then things might just go downhill. So go in positive, go in being confident, saying, I'm ready. I've put the time in and I can do this, I think.
Perfect. And you said you wanted to mention something else?
Yeah. And then before we end, we have to flip back to something positive.
Yes.
So this has come up a lot lately, and more so at NW3 than anywhere else, is the talking in the parking lot. And it could be a real bummer for a lot of people. So I did want to bring it up because it can affect you mentally. And I was just going to tell a quick story at one of my NW3s. And this is in one of my classes. And I was looking for the video the other day and I can't find it for the life of me. It's somewhere on this laptop. But it was an NW3 and I was literally in my car with the Illuminate covering my windows, like reading a book, hiding, and someone's knocking on my window, like moving the Illuminate. How many hides did you find in so-and-so search? Because we all found 2, but so-and-so found 3, so none of us passed. And this is just as I'm going into my last search of the day, which I thought we did pretty good. Like, I was feeling confident. We didn't get any no's. And I was like, well, we missed one in interiors. And that's when you had to be perfect. And you should see the look on my face in this container search, which we got. And we ended up placing in this trial, and we titled, I look so miserable. Like, what's the point of life? Like, why did I even come do this search? Because we didn't pass. So please, I beg all of you, and I know it's so hard at NW3 because you don't know until the end of the day how many hides there were, and everybody wants to get the scoop. But I've heard a lot of stories of people literally talking about a search in front of someone else's car that hasn't run the search. And it could mess with somebody's mind so much. So I just wanted to put that out there. Don't talk about the searches. Don't just wait till the end of the day. Talk about weather. Talk about other things. Talk about how fun parkour is, but don't talk about your NW3 searches.
Yes, and I think that that's very, very important. It can also help you. So I think this is something we can do as instructors. Of when we're doing classes, or if you're practicing on your own, make this a routine. You do the search, and then maybe you quietly go into a place where you can look at your video, you do your logs, and then you talk about anything else about dogs, but nothing to do with set work or nose work. So get yourself used to this, because it's human nature. I just did a thing, I want to talk about the thing. But talking about the thing at a trial in any level is really bad, because exactly what the example that Lori was giving, it can have such a negative impact on everybody else. It's also not helping you to just vent. So we can make different routines so that it's not as hard to not talk about it. That could really help too. Do you think any of that would be able to be helpful for you, maybe for the classes or for your clients when they're practicing?
Yes. I definitely need to add that to the course. And yeah, that's an excellent idea.
Perfect. And we do have 2 more questions, and then we can get into the good stuff.
Yeah.
So they were wondering, and building off of the longer question about the water, spraying of the water, of clearing the dog's nose of any smells. Is there an actual way that you may be able to do that? My answer is no, I don't think so. What do you think?
I was going to say, if there is, I don't know. And I was about to feel really dumb. Like maybe everybody's talking about this secret thing and I just don't know about it. No, I mean, I've said, if the dog's really working a problem and then they'll leave the area and come back, I'll say they're clearing their nose, because I think sometimes they just need to get out of that
Yeah.
odor. But it's not actually like, they're not like, we're not blowing their nose or anything. I think they're just getting, it's just a phrase that I use. They're clearing their nose. But I don't think that there is. And I think our dogs have such a catalog. Like, people will come into a smelly room and say, well, how could they possibly search in here? It smells like car parts. Our dogs can figure that out. They have much different anatomy than we do, that they can say, yep, that's engine oil, that's this, that's that, that's birch, that's anise, that's a cookie, they can figure that all out. So don't stress about being in an area that has a funky smell. Our dogs still know what they're looking for, and they'll still find it.
Absolutely. And as long as you're making the focus about finding target odor, whatever it is you're trying to have them find, that leads to awesomeness. Then
Yes.
the dog can then make that active decision, because it's not as though your dog is turning their nose off to everything else in the environment. The biggest thing with scent work is it's the environment versus you and your dog. That's really what it boils down to, because the environment is saying, pay attention to me. And we place this little completely meaningless birch, anise, clove, whatever it is out there and say, go find that thing instead. Don't find the bunnies. Don't find the dog odor. Don't find that dropped, French fry or whatever it is that was dropped like 3 weeks ago. Your dog is detecting all that stuff, but they're making the actual choice to go find the birch. That's where our training comes in. We got to make whatever it is, the birch, the anise, the clove, so powerful and impactful on the dog that they want to choose to find that thing, even though the environment is telling them to find so many other things. That's one of the reasons why Lori is such an excellent instructor and trainer, is because she does something called train dirty, where she actually works a lot with distractors, which I think is awesome. So I'm going to have you talk about that. Then we're going to tackle another question, and then we can do the happy thing.
Yeah. So yeah, our little catchphrase, train dirty, really for us means train, don't complain, right? So we put it all out. We train with food on the floor. We train in really distracting areas. I will have all the dogs in class potty and then set a search over there. But again, we're setting it up so that the dogs can succeed. I don't want the dog like, there's our potty area, go find that box, right? I want to set it up in a way that they can work through it. But yeah, if you're training in pristine environments all the time and your dog hasn't seen treats dropped on the floor or worked in a dirty area or in an area where dogs might have soiled or whatever the case may be, we got to show them all that before they get to the upper levels, or at really any level, right? Even NW1 or your ORT, you could have some distracting stuff in the environment. So training for it and just making it part of your program, I think, is really important.
Perfect. And then we have another question. For talking about reviewing videos, what platform do you recommend for using for video review? So basically, where should they be uploading their videos to so they'd be able to share it with an instructor?
Yeah, I mean, YouTube is great. Like she said, I do a lot with Google Drive. I think Vimeo you might have
Mhm.
to pay for. I'm
Yep.
not sure. Yeah, so some of them are paid. Dropbox I think has a free and a paid version, or maybe you can do so much in Dropbox. But really, my two go-tos are YouTube and Google Drive. But anything that someone else can view, I think would work.
Yeah, I completely agree. The wonderful thing about using YouTube in particular is that they also have built into the YouTube player, they have a way that you can change the speed. And
Yeah.
that can really help, because then the instructor would be able, as they're reviewing it, they can then slow it down or speed it up. And for many instructors who are doing these types of video reviews, including Lori, is they'll use a different program in order to capture their screen when they're actually looking at your video. And then they can point out specifically, here, did you see this head turn? Here, did you see that? Oh, look at this. Did you see that stutter step? And because they can slow it down or speed it up, because both are really helpful, they can help you better see those really tiny little details. So I would highly recommend that the majority of people, because YouTube is free, upload your videos to YouTube, have it be unlisted. No one else needs to see it. It's just whoever you share the link with would be able to view it. And that could be really, really helpful. So highly recommend that you guys do that. All right, Miss Lori, we're ready for your happy.
I don't know if I have anything happy, but but yeah, I just want you guys to go on NW3 more positive, right? And one thing that I used to do before my trials would be, I would say, we deserve to be here. We've put the training in. She has the capability to not only title, but take first place. And I would go in like that instead of saying, oh God, I have an NW3 tomorrow. We're going to suck. Right. If you go in that way, that's what's going to happen. So I want you guys all to put your big smiles on, be positive, embrace your NW3. And, I want you guys all to do well. And if you need help, myself and there's a lot of other trainers out there are willing to help you.
Perfect. So speaking of which, you guys were like, oh, Lori is amazing. And you are absolutely correct. So how can I maybe work with Lori? There's lots of different ways. So she has actually offered a lot of stuff with us with Suffolk University. One of the things she offered is her NW3 trial prep course. So you can just talk about that real quick, Lori, as far as what you offer in that course.
Yeah, I mean, we go over, and one thing in all of my courses, I don't say, okay, this is NW3, so this week we're going to do 0 to 3 hides and blah, blah, blah. I try to look at the different concepts for NW3. So, we talk about covering a search area and doing your blank and then with odor. And so we cover all the different things, but it's open and it's whatever you need more work on. So if you really need to work on vehicles, we'll do a lot of vehicle, as a student. I want it to be what you guys need. So if I see something in a video like, oh, we really need to work on this, I'll say, send me more videos of this. So I try to tailor it to everybody, but it does cover everything in NW3. And if you work as a student, you'll get lots of video review.
And Lori is absolutely incredible with her video reviews. So much feedback. Oh, it's so good. But you also offer another course for us, which is called the All-Level Trial Prep Course. Can you talk a little bit about that course?
Yes, I love this course because it is for all levels, because things that you see at NW3, you probably are also going to see at NW1 and 2, and possibly your ORT, you're going to see them at Elite. So each week has a topic, and then I have 5 different lessons that could help you with that topic. So for example, one is sourcing. So 5 different games or setups or searches you can do that will help you with your sourcing, which will help you with all levels, right? So it's 6 weeks and each week has a different topic, and it will help you for any level that you're training for.
Perfect. And the other thing that Lori offers through Suffolk University are her video reviews as well as Zoom consultations. So you just talk really quickly about the video review process as well as how you may go about with a Zoom consultation, the type of things that people may schedule that for in order to work with you.
Yeah. So I'll talk about the video reviews first. It's probably my favorite thing to do is the video reviews, because I feel like I learn so much too, because I'll watch a video and then I'll take it back to my students, not the video, but whatever we're talking about, and say, oh, I just saw this video today and this is what happened and this is what I told them and this is what we need to work on. And then I'll set up our class for whatever I saw in the video review. So I love them, just personally, because they help me so much, with my classes of something I see that someone sends me that I can then work on with everybody. So if you've sent me a video review, you're helping a lot of people. But whatever it is, it might be a trial video and they'll say, oh, we totally bombed this search. What could we have done better? Or do you see something that I didn't see? And I will do things like I'll go look at the virtual debrief and see, what the CO's plan was, what their challenge was. And then if they said, what was happening in that search. I like to watch the videos cold first. Like I don't even read the people's comments the first time I read it, because I want in my head what I am seeing before I get all the feedback between the debrief video and whatever comments the handler sent. But yeah, they take a good amount of time, and I do give a good amount of feedback because I really want you to learn from them. So, and I usually try to give an exercise that you can do to work on that, before you go to your next trial. And I always offer, if you want to send that in, we could do a video review of that. So a lot of people just keep going and going with them, which is great.
And then for the Zoom consultations, what are some of the ways that people are using those?
Yeah, same. I'll usually have some, if someone's having a specific issue, I will say, send me a video of what is happening, like whatever your issue is. We'll talk about that. We'll review that video. And then I always try to have some lessons that I can send, show video on my screen. You could try this lesson and see how this would help you with that. So I always try to get some information beforehand so I can be prepared. And it's more specific topics in the video review than just, what happened, right? In the Zoom consultation, it's more specific issues that we look at.
Perfect. And then you are also a very busy person with your own business. So can you talk a little bit about what you're offering through Do Over Dog Training?
Yeah, so we have lots of classes, lots of events. I do workshops, so I'll travel for workshops. I also host workshops at my place. If you're on the East Coast, we have a super exciting sniffy day at an amusement park in October that I am so excited about. I cannot wait. They've been super cool with us. So if you want to come have some fun, we're going to do searches. It's October 12th. But I always try to do stuff like that. I try to find new, unique places, maybe some place we can't have a trial at, but we can have like some kind of mock trial or some kind of fun challenge. So yeah, we do all the things, all the classes, trials, events, workshops, seminars. We do it all.
Yeah, Lori is absolutely incredible with her creative events. Truly, we're talking murder mysteries. We're talking places that you never would have thought of. It's amazing. So if you guys aren't already, join her newsletter. Join her on social media. Look to see what she's offering because she blows me away. First of all, that she has the stamina to do any of this stuff, but also the creativity that she has is just out of this world. It's so impressive. I just want to let everyone know, yes, this live stream is going to be recorded. The recording will be posted on our YouTube channel. Also process the video and then I'll formally post it up onto our social media. So our Facebook page as well as our Facebook group, because Facebook can be silly where sometimes it goes away. And let's see. One final question for you. Did you state that I could enter an Elite S trial with an NW3 element title versus a leg?
No, the level 3 element, like an L3C, L3E, but not just a NW3 container, right?
Okay.
So it has to be you have to have a leg, or like I said, the level 3 elements, which is different, right? Am I explaining that?
Go ahead and go in a little bit deeper, just so people understand.
So there are element specialty trials where it's like 4 searches of containers, 4 searches of vehicles, exterior, interior. And if you get a level 3 title in that, you can enter an Elite S. But your NW3, like if you get your 3 legs of containers and you get that NW3-C title, that doesn't do it.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah. If you have more questions, let me know.
And then we just wanted to post this. We can indeed confirm that the NW3 Trop course is indeed wonderful.
Oh, thanks, Nikki.
So I want to make certain that we are answering everything that you guys have. And I'm sure there's plenty of you who are like, we want more. So as you can see, Lori is absolutely spectacular. We would love to put together maybe a webinar, our 90-minute presentations that are covering some of these things or additional elements that we haven't covered yet in this live stream. So I definitely want you guys to reach out to me. You can contact us directly through Sutton University. You can write comments in this live stream. Let me know what you're interested in. I'll then circle back with Miss Lori, who's very, very busy. But whenever she has availability, we can put that together for you. And that again will be offered through Sutton University. But I want to thank you also very much for joining us today for this free live stream. Miss Lori, you were spectacular as always. Thank you so much for all that you do.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, everyone, please make certain you give a cookie to your puppies for us. They are such good little ones. All right, happy training. We look forward to seeing you all soon.